if you guys haven't guessed it already, we're going to be cleaning the bike properly today. So I'm just going to grab myself a coffee, throw the gear outside, and I'll see you out there. As you can see, the bike is pretty dirty from the weekend's ride. The weather was a bit terrible, so got to give it a good clean before next week, before anybody sees it. So the first thing I like to do is give the bike a complete rinse off before all you pressure washer police start jumping on me kidneys here. This is not a very powerful jet wash, and as long as you don't get her up close and personal into the bearings, you shouldn't have an issue. This step is more often than not overlooked. People do not bother rinsing the bike off before they start hitting it with a sponge or a mitt or anything else. Really, you want to get all that loose gravel and contamination off the bike. I like to give it a couple of minutes both sides to just get as much of it as I can off. Next step I like to go in for is to hit it with a bit of snow foam. If you haven't got a snow foam gun, you can buy bottles, spray pumps. You don't necessarily need the gun. Once you've successfully covered your bike, your house, your plants, your decking, and anything else that was in a 10 feet radius in your snow foam, I just let that sit for about 5-10 minutes. But what I tend to do is work on the drivetrain now while everything else is softening up on the bike. First step I do switch from the jet wash onto the ordinary hose just to rinse the snow foam off the drivetrain. This is just drivetrain cleaner. You can buy multiple different types of products out there. Drivetrain and brake disc cleaner. I'm not going to talk about the brands or anything else because this video isn't sponsored and I don't want anyone to be thinking that. But it does say on the packaging that this is suitable for brake discs as well. But I know from experience that the stuff's a bit corrosive, so I would rather not. This is just a lid from a bucket that I have cut up, and I'll put it on the bike to protect the disc brake from any overspray of the drivetrain cleaner, just to be on the safe side. So while that product's just doing its due, I will take my brush and go along the wheels and tyres just before I whip them off. Right guys, so I've just been in and filled myself up 2 buckets of water, and I always use the 2 bucket method. The reason for that is 1 bucket to lather the mitt up with your soap, and by the way, don't use washing up liquid to clean your bike. I know there's going to be lots of people in the comments below saying I've used it for years and I haven't had any issues. Fact is, washing up liquid has one purpose, and that is to be a degreaser. It is not good for your bike. I know you may have used it for years and not had any issues, but guess what? We used to go outside in the back garden for a into a wooden hut in the middle of the night, then we just found a better way. I don't think it's any cheaper than you can buy cheap car shampoos out there. You don't need to go for the bike tax and buy a specific road bike shampoo, but you can definitely get a car shampoo for similar sort of money to Fairy Liquid, so why not? And they aren't degreasers. Just my opinion though. So the idea here is you use this bucket with all the soap to lather up to get on the bike. Now I use a lamb's wool mitt for this. I do not use a car sponge. Car sponges can only absorb water. If you get a piece of grit on the surface of your car sponge while you're rubbing it on your bike, you're just going to rub sandpaper all over your bike, and it's going to cause scratches and swirl marks and everything else. If you look at cars in the sun and you can see all them spider webs, the holograms, the swirl marks, that's all from decades of bad washing, and it's not good. So dirty mitt goes in the rinse bucket. And then back in your wash bucket. I do have grit guards in the base of these, which help things a little further as well. So and don't forget to do your bars and your covers, because they will get covered in bacteria and sweat, and eventually begin to corrode or stink over time. Drying cloth all over the bike. If you've got compressed air for this, then you are the lucky one. But make sure you try and dry the bike off as much as possible. At this stage, once you're satisfied that the bike is completely dry, you can pop your wheels back on, re-lube your drivetrain and put it away, and that's absolutely fine. However, this is where the detailing stage comes into it. I have a little bit on the front of the bike that's going to need some paint correction where the cables have been rubbing it. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to decontaminate the paintwork before doing that, and then obviously protect it when we're done. So stick around for that bit. So to those of you that are still here, thanks very much. Next step I'm going to do is decontaminate the frame, and I do that with this clay, detailing clay. So lubricate the frame and rub it all over with the clay. Also, full disclosure here, I must say, do not do this if your bike is a satin or matte finish only. This stage only for gloss finish bikes, lacquered bikes. Just to show you, it will find contamination on the bike even after you've washed it. Once you're satisfied that you've decontaminated the frame, dry all of your lubricant off. You can either use car shampoo and water mixture as a lubricant for your clay, or most come with their own type of lubricant, but if not, you know, you can use a quick detailer as a lubricant. But just be careful. So I am quite fortunate to have a Carbon Collective mini DA machine. Now, if you don't have a dual action polisher or any type of rotary polisher, you can do this by hand. So the first place I'm going to attack is the bit on the front where the cables have been rubbing and it's grazed the lacquer, causing the paintwork to dull. Once I've done that, I'll put a strip of protection tape over it, a bit of clear bike protection to prevent that from happening again in the future. So once you're happy enough after you've polished everything and you've taken out any imperfections and you're happy enough for the correction, I am. This is my personal bike and I think she's blinging. It's time to do some protection. Now this is just a carnauba based car wax that I'll put on the bike. I'll just apply a coat of wax to the frame. Not forget the bit that I've polished out. What I'll do is I'll apply 2 or 3 coats of that wax. I'll put a coat on, give it 5 minutes, let it haze up. I'll buff it off and then I'll apply another coat, let that haze up and buff that off as well for a bit of extra protection. The only other thing left to do now is lube up the drivetrain, and what I like to do is put an individual dollop of winter lube, and I'll put a dollop on every link. Once I've got a drop on every link, I'll run it through the gears up and down on both front and rear. Once I'm satisfied that everything's lubed up, I'll then just take a paper towel and whip off the excess. Well then people, if you're still here, thank you so much for sticking to the end. That is how I wash, decontaminate, paint correct and protect the bike. Obviously don't wash it like that every week, there is absolutely no need to. With the wax and protection on there, it's very hydrophobic, so all I'll need to do is rinse the bike off, give it a wash down, dry it and put it away. As long as I look after it and wash it correctly with the 2 bucket method, there's not going to be any more scratches or swirl marks on it. And I have put a piece of tape to protect the front that's going to stop those cables from running.